My name is Kristina.
And I'm Mandy.
Welcome to Zen Zestful.
We're two chicks who really fuck with yoga.
We know a lot about yoga,
Not everything about yoga.
and we're here to share our knowledge and our stories with you. So today we are going to talk about, is yoga religious? Is it a religion? No,
We might, yeah, no,
no,
no.
not in any sense of the word. So before we get too far into this, I just want to share a
Do
few.
you think this is the one that they're going to come at us for? Is this the one? Is this the one?
Hard to say. I know. I mean, I hope not.
I mean, is it controversial to say? It's not.
I don't think in stage it necessarily is. I think if we were living within a very conservative religious society, it would be controversial, but I hope people are open-minded to it.
So why did you feel the need to start an episode on, let's give some because I never affiliated yoga with a religion. I just, like I had said in our show or one of the earlier episodes, my grandpa did it and reversed his eyesight and helped him with his diabetes. And I was like, hey, I can stretch. When did you get this notion that people might confuse yoga with a religion?
I think over time, from a few different angles. So when I was growing up, I had a lot of friends that were very conservative Christians. So who, weren't allowed to read Harry Potter, like that kind of situation. And the way that I remember it is when I had first started doing yoga when I was 12, I'm pretty sure some of the moms said stuff to my mom about like, you're letting her do yoga. Actually, now that I'm talking about this is actually 100% true. It's all coming back to me now. And then my mom's like, yeah, I am letting her do yoga. I signed her up for yoga. And I grew up in a Christian household, and my parents had never said, oh, you can't read or watch Harry Potter, or you can't do yoga, because like, it's not a religion. Like, yoga is not a religion.
Right. You think that it's that they maybe confuse it with like because it perceived to be almost culty sometimes because of the way that people are in the yoga community behave. You got the Netflix documentary,
the Bikram one. It's excellent if anybody hasn't watched it. It's excellent in how awful it is, like how sad it is. But
the Bikram one, but also to the Osho one, the Wild West Country. Yeah, and it kind of shows like how it became very culty. I think it's 70s and 80s when it was set. And I think that definitely gave it a bad rap. And you end up getting like this cult like mentality when you have these people that come in to these communities and represent themselves as like the guru or the end all be all of the thing that they're teaching or bestowing upon everybody.
And you know what? So that's not where the fear, I think, came from the other moms. Like the way that it was portrayed to my mom is like, oh, is yoga the worship of Satan? And I shit you not. That was the fear that other moms expressed to my mother when she signed me up for yoga, because I think perhaps or assume that a lot of people in the Western world think that yoga is associated to Sikhism or Hinduism. Yoga is not an expression of an Eastern religion. It's mentioned in some Eastern religious texts for sure, which I'll talk about really shortly, but it's not a religious practice at all. Again, it can be associated, but we're gonna pull that apart. So before we get too wildly into this topic, I just want to share with you some definitions of religion that I've found. So we're all on the same page here. So I wrote down a few. So number one, the service and worship of God or the supernatural.
Okay.
As religion. Okay. System of faith and worship.
Okay.
The last one I have is belief in and worship of a superhuman power or powers, especially a god or gods.
Okay.
So those are kind of going to be our baseline understanding of what religion is. And what religion is, of course, can be a whole topic in and of itself. But this is not a religion podcast, so we're not going to.
No, I don't want it to be a religion. I don't want those people coming after those.
I don't want any part of that.
We're just two girls who really fuck with yoga.
It's true. We're just trying to share a love of yoga. But yeah, I don't want to say it's a concern in at least the society and the culture and the place that you and I live in. It did, I know, come up for both of us recently in a way that I'm not going to explicitly go into right now, but it came up and I hadn't thought about this point of view in a long time, that people might associate yoga being a religion or the worship of Satan. And then when it got brought up to me again, I was like,
Whoa, I think I know which incident you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I think I was the one that brought it to your attention.
I think so.
But I had never been exposed to this line of questioning before.
Yeah.
And it was basically, I was teaching a yoga class and the concern that was brought up was, well, I feel guilt about doing yoga because of the Bible. And I had never thought about it in that sense. I never really thought about the Bible. I mean, I'm not Christian, but I have never read the Bible. So full disclosure there, but I didn't know that the Bible mentioned yoga. I didn't just say it would. They're just different areas in the world and they were written. But to me, it was, oh, there are people out there that are nervous about doing yoga or don't want to do yoga because they think that it uh, contradicts their religious beliefs.
Yes.
And I think I've heard that now since that incident one other time, different religion. But you're not praying to anybody when you're doing yoga.
No.
You're not worshiping anybody when
Yeah.
you're doing yoga.
And there's no aspect of faith in yoga. So we're all kind of,
Yeah.
because I think I know where you're going with that hesitation. As we've spoken about before with the 8 limbs of yoga, samadhi, how do you say samadhi?
Samadhi, samadhi,
Samadhi,
samadhi.
that, which is
Enlightenment.
Yeah, it's enlightenment. You are looking for enlightenment, and enlightenment is
Within you.
And becoming one with the universe, which is already within you.
Right.
You are not worshiping yourself through yoga. You are not worshiping the universe through yoga. Although I will say some people choose to use a yoga practice as a worship of God.
To connect.
But it is not mandatory. And a quote that I wanted to read out from Deskachar, who's a very renowned teacher, his son is also a very renowned teacher, is the notion of God is neither rejected nor forced on anyone in yoga. So it is what you make it. But yoga in and of itself is not a religious practice.
No. And I think also too, when you say namaste, I mean, I didn't really start using that word until I started doing yoga. I'm raised Sikh household, Punjabi, and you didn't say namaste, but you say it at the end of a yoga class. It basically literally translates to the light in me honors, sees the light in you.
Yeah.
That is it.
Totally.
And it's got nothing to do with God. Will say that there was somebody that had approached me and had said, well, they're speaking about their own religion. And it was, well, we can do yoga because it is a way of getting to God that is outside of my religious confines, that I'm not following this path, I'm following that path to get to God. And I don't know that yoga made me more religious. I think it made me feel more connected to everything around me because it made me more connected to myself.
I would agree with that myself.
So through doing yoga and attempting to practice all 8 limbs of yoga, there are certain limbs that I just haven't fucked with yet because they're intense, right?
Yeah.
It's a very rigid practice if you follow it properly. But in just doing the 8 out of the 8 limbs, the number of limbs that I've had started to implement into my life, I definitely felt more connected to people around me. I felt a shift within me and for the better, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying like it's perfect or that I'm just this profound human now, but that maybe makes you feel more connected to a higher power, but it's not a religion.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to bring up the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali because this text was written. Yeah, it's a really cute book. I honestly, I love this book. If you can get a Yoga Sutras book that has the nice little write-ups that actually explains what's going on, highly recommend because it'll deepen your practice for sure. And this was written, I believe, around 2,000 years ago. And at no point at any time in this very, very important text of yoga, arguably one of the most important ones, is religion mentioned. Not at all.
What's neat about Patanjali is, so you're saying it's 2,000 years old. Yoga's 6,000 years old. Prior to that, you had the Vedas.
Yep.
Prior to that, you had the Upanishads. And even that, like, you don't have the full picture of that because how many people have access to that and how many people can actually translate and comprehend the Upanishads. It's not a simple text.
Enough once I was in chapters, said chapters, and I'm like, I feel like I should read the Upanishads. And I open up and like, Maybe not today. I want to.
So and so people don't always understand how far back this goes. And just to think about it, 6,000 years ago, there was a group of people on that side of the world that were able to make this connection between the breath, the mind, and the body.
Mhm.
And they were able to show people how you can apply this to your life.
Absolutely.
And then, 4,000 years later, this guy comes along and
Yeah.
he creates this.
He creates this, and this is a guidebook.
As
This
a
is an
guidebook.
OG guidebook.
Yeah.
So his big thing is detaching, and that's his path to yoga is, and he goes through what problems are you going to come across as you find this path to yoga? What are the solutions? The overarching theme is detachment. He discusses a lot about consciousness, the human condition as the issues, the problems.
Yeah.
But yoga in his sutras is a means to end suffering. That is what he's all about.
Yeah.
His whole thing is let's detach to end our suffering.
Which I think that's why I resonate so much with yoga, because of my own upbringing. And, I was religious up until a certain point, and then we talked about, then I went the other way, right? There is a lot of parallels in a lot of those Eastern religions, in Buddhism, in Sikhism, in what he's talking about, of how to live life minimizing your suffering and where the suffering is actually stemming from.
Yeah.
And most suffering is attachment. You're attached to people, outcomes, things, places, goals. And when they don't go your way, you're kind of pissed.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times if we have really big events in our lives, like the death of a loved one,
That's a big one.
yeah, or a life altering injury or anything like that, that really makes you pause and go, oh my gosh, like I am still here. I'm grateful for my life. Then it makes you kind of readjust. So I had a little story time. I had a really, really terrible allergic reaction. So I've always had severe allergies. I had a really terrible allergic reaction in Berlin in 2017. And I've had bad reactions in the past, but the way that this one played out
Did you
was
see the light?
it was almost there. But yeah, it was really bad. And I got to the point where in my brain I was like thinking, I don't want to die. It was really scary. I was just like, I don't think this is my time. Like I was having these thoughts and that knocked me into kind of reality and into action and to try and figure out what the fuck was going on. And anyways, I'm here today, but that affected me so profoundly mentally over, I would say the following 5 years after that. And it's really only been the last few years now where I've kind of come out of this hyper state that I was in. And that's a whole other situation. But once that happened, I reassessed and I'm like, okay, what actually matters in my life? What actually
Is important to me.
is important to me. And what is the day-to-day stuff that maybe I'm attached to, but really has no bearing on my life
For the bigger picture
or the
of it.
bigger picture. Exactly.
Yeah. I think a lot of times people misconstrue the concept, especially if you don't understand what detachment truly is, misconstrue it, or you assume it means you don't love.
Yeah.
And
You don't want to be here on this
you don't want to be here on this earth. You want to escape this earth. And that's not what it is. It's hard to detach because we often associate love with attachment and control and, mine. So when you have something like, losing a loved, how do you detach? This guy had to honk his horn in the middle of the podcast. I hope, but, if a parent, for example, right, and you can we can both relate to this.
Yeah.
You lose your parent, and that's a whole other type of love. And when they're out of your life, you moving on and learning how to move on doesn't take away from the fact that you love them. Or when you're married to someone, or are in a long-term committed relationship with someone, to love them without attaching to them.
Yeah. Yep.
That's not easy to do because we start to get possessive.
Mm-hmm.
Or with the concept of parents, it's my parents going to be here forever.
Yeah.
And when they're not, it's a shock. But how do you keep going?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what you find with that. What with Patanjali and his sutras is, how do you minimize the suffering and keep going through life, even though you do love, you continue to love, but you're not attached.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. Like the attachment is not just, or the detachment rather, it's not just detaching from the bad things. It's also detaching from the good things.
And the outcomes of those good things. You know, we love our parents, we love our, you know, we love our families, but things aren't always going to go your way.
Yeah,
They're not going to go on your timeline. And it's the acceptance of that.
exactly.
Because once you accept, oh, you know what, this didn't go my way, but that doesn't take away from the experience that I had.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Wow. So is yoga religion, Mandy?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
So you should probably do some fucking. If you want, we're not forcing yoga.
No.
We're not. I don't think we're a sales pitch.
I would say my only hope in us discussing this is that if one feels that yoga isn't accessible to them because of a religious
belief.
I hope that knowing that yoga is not a religion or not a religious practice helps people find yoga as well.
I agree. Well,
Amazing.
thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
If you found value in this episode and you enjoyed this conversation, please like, share, subscribe, or share it with somebody who you think would find value in it. And we will see you next time.
Thanks for being here. We appreciate you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.